Good evening, everybody. Welcome to BadgerPod Gamergate number 4. Hopefully you heard that. So good evening. This is BadgerPod Gamergate number 4. Thor, not just female, feminist. Welcome to the show. I am joined here by our panelists, varying degrees, temperatures, and soggy knee levels. And I'm just going to go quickly around the table and introduce everyone. First, we have Alison Tiemann. Just say hello.
Oh, hello.
And then we have Anna Cherry.
Hello. Should I say more about myself or
Yeah,
no?
we can. I was just being a turd to Brian. I was just sort of trolling. Okay, I'll say a little bit. I'm Alison Tiemann. I sort of originated the idea of Honey Badger and Radio. And with Hannah and Karen, we sort of did the first shows. And I do a webcomic called Xenospora, and it's science fiction. And it's
Really good.
Oh, thank you. All right, well, then you take it.
All right. I'm a adult entertainer, professional naked girl, and a cosplayer. And I'm also a gamer, and I have gotten my gaming medal with FPS games such as Halo 1 through 4, as well as Call of Duty Black Ops, and pretty much any kind of competitive FPS. But since I'm a supporter of Gamergate, the literally who's will tell you that I don't actually exist. So I guess you guys are listening to a ghost of the patriarchy, and yeah, that's me.
Brian sock puppet.
Thank you, my
Or penis
sock puppet. Yeah. Next, from the recesses of the darknet, we have Hannah.
Hey, wait, how did I end up in the darknet?
We all come from the darknet, Hannah. But just keep it between us. Shh.
Do we all float down here too?
This is haram.
I'm Hannah Wallen, author of Breaking the Glasses, and also I write for the Honey Badger Brigade, and I think that's going to be it.
Okay, also we have Mr. Dr. Randomacam. Mr. Doctor.
Hello, yes. I'm Dr. Randomacam. I'm a video bastard. You can find me on YouTube being Dr. Randomacam and being a bastard.
And this just in from the chat, Dr. Randomacam is the hottest. No homo. Full objectification, though.
Both homo and no homo at the same time.
Yes. Thank you.
All comers welcome.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm sure our superiors at Red Channel are pleased.
Oh, wait. No, Brian is the sexiest, apparently. This is according to Mad Cat, so I guess you guys got to throw down for the title of sexiest animal? Badger, panda, dog thing? Mammal?
That sounds like fun. Then we have Rachel Edwards, the evil Rachel.
You mean Rachel nearly got dropped off the plate?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Rachel Edwards, and I'm on a phone because my internet crapped out. But I'm here anyway because the show must go on. You can find my various kinds of shit posting and the like on my blog at naughtynerdist.tumblr.com.
All right, thank you, Rachel. If we were triggers, were people, we would be an entire garrison of stormtroopers.
Oh, that's an idea. What triggers would we be? I think I would be logic trigger.
Well, yeah, obviously, logic triggers. I think that, yeah, because you kill or be slaughtered. That's all I got to say about that. Cops.
Yeah. No, I just thought it was interesting. Like what? Like it's sort of like a game. Like what drink would you be, right? So I think Anna would probably be What would you be? Objectification trigger.
Definitely objectification trigger. But on Sundays, I go to Call of Duty because that's a spiritual experience for us gamers. You know, FPS games, that's our church.
FPS, that's first-person shooters. Shoot 'em up.
And
that was a line from SVU, quite literally. That is a spiritual experience for the gamers to do FPS. So I guess on Sundays we go to Call of Duty.
Yeah, and I think Mike would be like a.
I think I'm freak trigger of some sort.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe sarcasm trigger. trigger sarcasm. Rachel would obviously be anal trigger.
Hey.
That sounds difficult to operate.
Own it. Own it.
No, I won't. I don't like the anal. That's the ongoing joke, that I like it, but I don't. I mean, I swear, you take one finger
we
up
can
the button in a
switch.
bookstore, and you
We
never
can
let
switch. I'll take the anal trigger. And you
Nobody
can take...
ever lets it go.
Rachel's schoolgirl trigger.
And Hannah, are you a nerd trigger?
I suppose.
Storytime trigger.
Or facts trigger?
History.
Facts
Oh
trigger.
gosh, no, definitely facts trigger.
Yeah.
Facts trigger. And Brian, what would Brian be? Because I'm sort of drawing a blank.
Oh.
Nice guy trigger.
Definitely
That's the good guy comic.
Yes, I'm the good guy trigger.
All right. Okay.
I guess I just have to introduce myself because I didn't. So I'm Brian Martinez. I do the Good Guy comic. Check it out at goodguycomic.com. Also, check out the forums there if you want to discuss shows, men's stuff, whatever. It's awesome. Do it. And I think that's it about us. We're all really, really bad people, and we're going to prove it right fucking now. So let's get started. First, we're going to talk about Parks and Recreation.
No.
You're right. No. First, we have to do news items, like some GamerGate updates.
Yes.
Allison, would you please give us the GamerGate updates?
This is the Good of GamerGate by Mad Cat. GamerGate was once thought as a loose group of gamers that wouldn't last more than a month, to now a powerful force that come together to do many great and amazing things. Since its incarnation, it has donated over $120,000 to various charities, including an emergency fund for former adult actress Cynthia. I don't know if I said that name right, but so far, GamerGate has helped this victim of rape and assault reach her goal. Even now, GamerGate is still donating. It's hard to look at GamerGate and see it as a hate movement, yet many still try to do exactly that. It seems the aggros, or the anti-GamerGaters, are working to undermine the GamerGate any way they can. This need to destroy us is nothing more than desperation. They can't address our points, so they try to ruin who and what we are and go after anyone who has an inkling of support for GamerGate. This includes Liana Kay, who herself was a supporter of Anita Sarkeesian and then was attacked for her views and nearly put out of business. In her 5-part video series on why she won't let Anita push her out, she explains in great detail of her journey from anti-GamerGate to now a GamerGate member. This was so effective that Tim Brown, lead designer for Assassin's Creed 3 and 4, took notice. While still on the fence about feminist frequency in GamerGate, it's important to note that bigger names are starting to take notice. More and more people are beginning to second-guess Anita and give more credit to GamerGate. However, there are trolls trying to influence GamerGate and those who sit on the fence. Reported today, a troll attempted to get a female gamer who remained neutral to stand against GamerGate. They did this by ejaculating on her picture and posting it on Twitter. This appears to have had the opposite effect. While she wasn't for or against GamerGate, she was a feminist and activist and agreed with some points of GamerGate. Her desire not to draw any more attention to this attack will be respected and her name will not be mentioned. She did mention that she expressed a surprise reaction in GamerGate reporting the picture to her. Not that GamerGate did it, but that the larger gamer community was silent about it. She has received no support from the anti-side about the trolling she received, yet GamerGate did whatever it could to help her. She may still remain neutral, but will know that GamerGate is not the misogynist group that so many are pushing to paint it as. We don't just fight for journalistic ethics, we fight for all of those who need help when so many others turn a blind eye to them. We are a mixture of so many genders, nationalities, philosophies, and sexualities. We can tell you we don't hate women, but how you look at our actions and decide for yourselves. More interesting is that more people are coming to the side of GamerGate thanks to the abuse of the anti-GamerGaters. In fact, they could be more effective in doing nothing against those on the fence and GamerGate itself. Yet they strive to show the abuse, show the side of GamerGate by being abusive themselves. And the more they do, the stronger GamerGate becomes. There were some other specific instances. If anybody has more details, feel free to chime in, because that's more of a general overview. But I'll throw it out to the panelists.
I think Rachel wanted to say something. I heard a ding.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rachel. We were respecting your ding.
Well, I didn't do a ding, but I think it's really cool that they did donate so much money to these charities and showed their support in different ways. And I just think it's amazing. I got nothing else, though.
Oh, there's also that instance of a British aggro whose girlfriend was needing some medical bills help, and the GamerGaters wanted to contribute to it, but since he blocked some of them, they couldn't retweet the ask for help tweet, and he responded with, "Oh, somehow I'll sleep at night that these people can't donate to my girlfriend." So he chose to take his stake in the political stance rather than getting help from people that genuinely want to give it, which were the GamerGaters.
Yeah. Well, there is one thing, and we'll probably talk more about this on Thursday, but the Gamergate Hug Patrol has been really great and supportive to individual people who have been feeling down and trying to cheer them up in different ways. And
Just a little louder, Rachel.
oh, sorry, I should probably speak a little bit further in. But yeah, the Gamergate Hug Patrol, hi Otter Jesus, has been very, very supportive to a lot of different people who suffer from depression or are dealing with a lot of issues at home or just really anything. And they are a very supportive force and a place where there's a lot of hate being tossed around, especially with the anti-side. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, I mean, if anybody doesn't have anything to add, I think I'm not exactly sure which developers are more, but apparently more developers are coming out for Gamergate, and that's positive. And yeah, I don't think that it's going to go anyway, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. And
We
the
leveled
only
it
way
up.
we leveled up. The only way it would is if people stop, and so it's essentially up to the people involved in the hashtag to stop, or the people involved in the movement to stop, which, well, don't. That's all I can say.
I do have one thing to say.
All right.
Because like you said, the don't stop. You're probably going to see, and we're probably going to see over time, the type of criticism that's coming up that's completely irrational. The lies, the mudslinging, the slander, all of that's going to increase. All of that's going to go up. Ignore it. Don't let it stop you. Don't let it change what you're doing. It means that you're having an effect. And it means that you're making an impact. And it means that the people who are trying to demonize you and paint you as somebody that you're not are failing, and they're stepping it up because they're not achieving what they're trying to do. And since they've all seemed to be stepping it up by using exactly the same methods that were already failing, I don't think that there's anything to worry about. I think just keep doing what you're doing because it's working.
As Gandhi said, first they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they fight you, and then you win.
Yeah. I find it hilarious that Hannah is saying that they're gonna make their arguments more absurd in the wake of the SVU episode. Like,
oh, believe me,
it's crazier than that, and I know it is.
It doesn't seem like it can, but it
well, somehow Freak tweeted that SVU trivialized what the women go through, so I'm not really sure what's the logic in that.
Yeah, because that means it's worse than that. But we're definitely going to...
Okay, wait. Well, yeah, we're getting into the SVU, but I think that needs to be... So it's worse than being raped, tied up, and, like, kidnapped, and... Okay, you know what?
No social justice in gaming. Bitches.
I just wanted to say...
Thank you, Bane.
Oh God, it's yeah, but and the thing is that we've experienced that. I'm looking forward to the next person or young man who has a severe mental illness and ends up shooting up a bunch of people, and this happens periodically, because it's apparently, it just is a thing, and that's going to be blamed on Gamergate. I'm calling it now. That there will be a mass shooting that will be blamed on Gamergate because the guy played Candy Crush or something.
And if the next one is female, because that happens also, it will be completely ignored. Never happened. Nobody will touch it. Won't get reported much in the news. Just glossed over.
Yeah, but let's. Do you want to go to Parks and Rec?
Let's do Parks and Rec real quick, and then come back to juicy SVU.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Rachel,
Mike,
that was your cue.
Or was it No,
No, it's Mike. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll slink off.
Yeah, get it right.
Okay. All right. Remember that sitcom that we told you about on the Nerdcast last year, and how sometimes they're sort of tongue in cheek about feminism, and sometimes they're not. Well, it's even harder to tell where their tongue is at this point. In some of their usual sort of campaign trail antics, they brought in some traditionalists as an adversarial plot point, and then they brought in some feminists as a secondary adversarial plot point. You might argue that's a double negative. The third time's a charm, and they brought in the tertiary adversarial plot point, some men's rights activists. And their depiction of men's rights activists, men who complain about women in exactly the same way that feminists complain about men, that they're forced to make pie and whatnot. And I know this is what neutral parties understand the situation to be, but it's certainly nice to hear feminists confirm that men's rights activists are pointless, whiny nothings because they're just like feminists. That's all I wrote.
That's perfect. I know where your tongues have been up at Amy Poehler's ass. I'm sorry, I have to say it because that's just fuck those people. That's it. I'm done.
Okay.
Okay.
That was short.
I got something.
Oh, but
Alison got there before me.
yes, I did. Stealth insertion. It's
Just for the
comment
record, they
rate.
have the same timestamp. You just
Really?
typed that. Yes.
Oh, wait, all right, fair enough. We can have a discussion on that, but all right. What exactly were they parroting? And I don't have a lot to say because I haven't really witnessed this, but if this is correct, essentially what I've heard is that they were the men's rights activists were upset because the political candidate said he would bake his own pie.
Essentially, they're parroting the same strawman MRA character that they tried to parody when they made that Saturday Night Live skit a while back. They don't know anything about MRAs. They just know that they're supposed to hate them. They have no information. They're just doing what most of the internet does, essentially. Well, most of the mainstream highly
Establishment.
Yeah, like the establishment, right?
Okay, all right. So because and this is why I created Fedoraman, even though I did I've written 2 episodes of Fedoraman in a year, so I guess I'm like every other webcomics creator. I don't actually ever update, but because I watched this Saturday Night Live episode and I was like, you know what? I can mock men's rights activists better than this. And I can do it in a way that actually references men's rights positions. And so that's what I created. And I don't want to explain the joke, but you can find it at honeybadgerbrigade.com. But it's like, if you're going to mock something, there has to be a grain of truth. I was reading this description. I was thinking, so essentially what they've done is, and I know that Parks and Rec mocks everybody. Everybody's a strident idiot. But essentially they've mocked for example, strident atheists by having an atheist come in and say, why doesn't this pie crust have homilies to God written on it? Praise God written on it. This is the atheist saying, why doesn't this pie crust say praise God and country under God? And there needs to be more God on this pie crust. And just getting really apeshit because the God is not mentioned on in reference to the pie. And it's like, do you know anything about atheists? Like, do you even know the most basic criteria for being an atheist when you're creating this strident picture of an atheist demanding that, I don't know, that classrooms say the Lord's Prayer before each frickin' class? Like, do you realize that how stupid that is? Like, it's not offensive. It's just you look dumb. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, well, I got a question, because, this is the only time I have ever watched this show. Is this normally, supposed to be a good show, and this was just a really bad episode? Because
it's gone downhill in the last couple of series, yeah. The characters are all trying to grow up and not doing a particularly good job of it.
As I wondered, because this is literally the most annoying thing that I've watched on television, and to my memory. Granted, I'm getting old and senile now, but, that's actually from this show. I mean, I, fuck all of television for making me have to watch that to know what was going on this show tonight. I am sure I lost brain cells. And just saying. But and honestly, the closest thing to funny on that episode was the feminist mesquite. But I really think, I don't know. It's not surprising to me that the MRAs weren't close to anything representing the men's rights movement. They weren't even close enough to be considered a caricature. I honestly didn't think anybody could do worse than Saturday Night Live, but they did. But it's not surprising to me that they didn't hit the mark. I don't think the goal is to hit the mark. I think the goal is to get to people that don't know anything about the movement before we do. But I think even more pitiful is that they had to take a swipe at porn stars. There's political activism, and then there's just petty crap. The political activism is, they're opposed to our viewpoint. Okay, so they're opposed to our viewpoint. They're gonna lampoon us and everything. Porn star is not a political viewpoint or anything. There really isn't anything that the porn stars are stupid trope was probably the saddest thing I've seen on television. The saddest idiot portrayal I've seen on television. Again, to my memory. It was like the social justice warriors got together and decided they were mad that porn stars rejected their unwanted white knighting, and a few had the nerve to side with MRAs, so they just had to sling some mud, and that was the mud they were slinging. And there wasn't any sense to it, and there wasn't any continuity to it. There wasn't even any rhyme or reason to it. It was just a bunch of crap thrown together. We're going to throw this in here. We're going to throw that in here. And oh yeah, let's sling some mud at porn stars. Woo! What kind of crappy show is that?
So I'm not a comedy writer, and I think that some of you are. I would guess that Mike is, at least. But I thought that when you are doing satire and you want to attack, you want to make a joke at the expense of something, typically something political like your president or Congress or whatever, it actually makes your humor stronger when you are using facts to make the argument in your humor. But if you literally don't even try to get enough, gather enough factual evidence or even like relevant information to make a joke, that you're more likely to have it just fall completely on its ass. And am I wrong about that? I think that makes sense. I think that's why shows like the Boondocks do really well with satire, because they do some research and then they find what they find to be something worth making fun of in truth, and then they turn that into the joke. So
different audiences have different thresholds of what counts as facts and what counts as interesting, don't they? And Parks and Rec has this sort of running joke of it's a small town type thing, so they have lots of very kooky, strange quirks to their town, whatever, and they always have to try and find new things to think of, and they thought, well, why not throw in some men's rights activists? Because that's a kooky thing we've heard of recently.
Yeah,
sounds like the kind of thing that would go on in Pawnee. So it sort of fits with the whole narrative of the show.
But it just wasn't funny.
No, it was lazy.
Allison?
I'm actually trying to get something just to...
Oh, okay.
I'm hoping that this will work. I know, but I'm trying. I'm trying really hard. I'm not sure why it's not showing up. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you go. Witchy woman putting something on the screen.
Yeah. I'm just like I just sort of snuck in, and then I just poof. I'm trying to show you guys something, but
that's rape, Allison.
I know it's just not showing up, so I guess I'm.
Yeah, but she slid right in there, so we must have wanted it.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. You're what? Wait. What have I just agreed to? Damn it! Ugh. Anyway, so I don't mind like it's like what Mike was saying. You got to know your subject a bit to actually parody it. You can't just throw random shit at a wall. And I have no problem with having men's rights activists be parodied, but do it in a way that actually makes some sense, that is actually consistent with positions that men's rights activists have. And I mean, like the Fedoraman comic that I read, and I know it's because I wrote it, but every time I look at it, I think it's hilarious. Because it mocks the actual stridency in the movement. It mocks the actual stridency in the movement, and it's not saying that it's necessarily wrong, but it's like mocking the taking something with a grain of truth and just pushing it to its extreme. And I don't have a problem with that, because everybody can fall prey to that. No matter how well reasoned your position is, you can turn into a well-intentioned extremist or a crusader of your position, to the point where you're just you're intolerable. And any position can end up in that situation. So mockery is appropriate, but it has to be something that you can get behind, something that has merit. And
I agree 100%. I think
it doesn't.
That was mainly my point, is that if you're going to mock something, I'm a little insulted that you didn't even know what you were mocking to mock it accurately. So I feel a little, like that's.
Well, I think.
It's not even funny. That's the worst part. Oh, if it was just funny.
Feminists, for the most part, all they know about the MRM is what they've been told, and that it's like feminism. So they think, well, let's think of all the bad things about feminism. That must be what the MRM is. Basically, so that's all this projecting fucking begins.
Yeah, I mean,
they've been told that we're their evil twin or something, so they're trying to eke out all of their worst, whatever. You know what I mean?
Kind of tells you what they think of themselves.
Men's rights activists is the opener, the story, and the punchline. That's all they feel like. That's all they have to say. Like, that is the joke, so they can just put it anywhere.
It's interesting that It's interesting that what that says. If men's rights activists are the punchline, then that means because humor generally lies at the boundaries of social acceptability. That means men's rights as a concept is outside of the boundary of social acceptability. And what does that say about us as a society? Silence.
Fuck, man, basically. I mean.
Yeah. Okay, that's depressing thought.
All right, so let's unless there's something else anybody wants to say about this really engrossing Parks and Rec, we can move on. Yes? Okay, we'll move on. Oh, Gamergate, SVU. This is going to be so good. Okay.
Oh,
Rachel.
Lord. Here we go. This is going to be interesting. So, do you want me to read it out? Right now?
Yes, read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your brain. Nobody else knows your brain.
Oh, okay.
Open it.
Give me a moment.
Give
Can
us
you hear
your
me all
brain.
right?
Give us all of your brain.
Yes, in slices so that we can
Can you
understand.
hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever said to yourself, man, I wonder what the world looks like to a paranoid hipster who happens to be anti-Gamergate? If so, then Law & Order SVU's episode, Intimidation Game, is for you. Not only is it mind-numbingly stupid and offensive to pretty much everyone, but it is propaganda of the worst kind. I mean, we might as well be watching Reefer Madness here, because it is just that bad. If you've ever wondered what the anti-Gamergate narrative looks like, then look up this episode, because you are going to laugh your ass off. The episode begins with a female police chief talking to her therapist about her son, worried of what will become of him since he is a rowdy, like any little boy would be. The therapist tells her that this is just the way boys are. The video then cuts to Ice-T and the other detectives who are at a gaming competition for no other reason aside from plot convenience. No, really. When has Ice-T's character ever showed an interest in video games? In the years he's been a character on the show, has he ever shown the slightest interest in games, or are we just going to assume that he does because he's the hip, cool black character? I mean, we haven't even gotten 3 minutes in without this being racist, because this episode uses the magical Negro trope not once, but twice throughout. Ice-T spills his gamer wisdom, being hip and in the know because reasons. And one who ultimately resolves the plot. The second guy is a hipster kid who just happens to know where all the harassment of Reina Punjabi is going down on the website RedChanet, and never has the mind to report it to the authorities. But that doesn't matter because, hey, a white woman with red-tinted hair is getting beaten up by gamers in a poorly constructed bathroom stall after being told that she needs to go home for being a gamer girl. Gamer men in this are portrayed as intolerable dude bro jocks in baseball caps who don't want women in their boys' club. Is it any wonder that the Literally Who's didn't like this episode even though they practically wrote it? Were they upset? Why were they upset? Because the moment this hysteria about gamer men played out on the screen, they were made to realize just how ridiculous they are being, and in doing so, had just demonized all gamers. In this episode, gamer men are not only evil misogynists, they are basically ISIS. If you are worrying that maybe things weren't about to get more racist, have no fear, because the writing staff decided not to take the 2 minutes needed to find an actual Indian surname for Anita Sarquin Wu's avatar and named her after a racial slur. Wait, it gets worse, because not only is Reina Punjabi a better person than all of the Literally Who's combined, but her fake game Amazon Warriors is better than Revolution 60 or Depression Quest. I mean, she even has more balls than they do, and she's a TV character. The Killer Bee slaughtered fanboys raid Punjabi's speech after swatting her, and somehow having a ton of police officers doesn't prevent 3 guys in masks from kidnapping her. The imagery used is clear and concise. Gamers are ISIS now. Not only that, but we're rapists and women abusers, because, you know, when I sit down to play Minecraft, all I can think about is rape. The story ends with a detective finding out that the rape took place in one of the guy's mom's basement and tracking them to a poorly laid trap meant to kill Reina Punjabi and the detectives. To no one's surprise, they play the they can't tell fantasy from reality card, which means that they need to be in a mental hospital and not a prison cell. But does that kind of shit matter? No, because we've hit all the bases. Demonizing white men? Check. Stereotyping black men as mystical purveyors of wisdom? Check. Portraying women as weak damsels easily willing to give up their dreams after abuse? Check. Making people fear that games turn men into violent ticking time bombs even though women also play them? Triple check. The episode closes with a tearful Punjabi staring off into the distance, proclaiming that the gamers have already won, and that she'll be quitting the industry. The police chief worries that her rowdy son could become like the gamer rapists, and Ice-T makes a joke about the kid he just shot. But you know, it's quality entertainment, you know, just the best kind. I don't know. Discuss.
Okay, I haven't actually watched this episode. So I actually refuse to watch it. I know everybody thinks it's hilarious, but I'm like, I've never been a kind of person who can stand cringe, and I think I'm just stepping on everybody. So I'm going to just slink off now.
Go home, gamer girl.
Oh my God! Oh, how could you say that? No, I can't.
Level complete.
Oh,
Uploaded through the dark net.
everyone, Brian is being mean to me.
I gotta say something. This is I never watched this show, but this was the most hilarious thing I've seen in 2015 already, and I don't think much is gonna top it. It was so bad that I think they may have struck gold with something great. One of the things that I thought was really interesting was all the stuff that you touched on, Rachel, with Reina Punjabi being courageous. No, I typed in earlier. Look, post dank memes, Brian. Yeah.
Oh, I see. I thought somebody told you to post dank memes, like Brian.
No,
I'm sorry.
Post dank memes, y'all. We leveled up. But I wanted to say that one of the things about the show that I noticed while I was watching it is that Reina, I don't even like saying her name because it just sounds wrong, but she actually does all the stuff that the people that she's based on would not do. She confronts her abusers, the people who are harassing her. She releases her game regardless of all of the criticism she gets, regardless of the fact that in the interesting comparison is in the real world, in our world where we have like Sarkeesian and stuff, the police told her that one talk that she was supposed to give, there was no threat of anything happening or no credible threat, and she canceled the talk. In this one, in the show, the police tell her that there is a credible threat and that she will likely be in danger, and she gives the talk anyway. So she's basically courageous in the face of, something far more sinister than what her real life counterpart was in danger of, and she didn't, and she basically went out and did it anyway. And yeah, her game, which is basically Farmville with like, I don't know, Nintendo 64 graphics, was something that she was able to present, and it was just really ironic in that regard. And then when they get into the ISIS territory and the raping and the, and get this, guys, according to the chat, I have to say that this is one of the main reasons why I put my thing in there. Movie Bob and I think Joystick, they believe that this was an accurate representation of what's going on. Like, they thought the show was accurate.
That is some funniest shit I've ever heard.
Okay, so I'm done. Cherry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's very true that you brought up the fact that Sarkeesian was, literally the one that she was mainly based on, Reina was based on. She canceled a talk, as we know, because there was an email threatening a massacre, and then the Utah University Police, in conjunction with the FBI terror watch force and all of that, they investigated the claims and found there was absolutely no credible threat, much like the other threats she received. That was one of the lines. So very much so already, the people are wrong if they think that it is in any way a reflection of reality, not to mention the whole rape situation, which we still have yet to witness any of the literally who's getting in any way harassed physically. So that's just, let's leave that alone. Now, the game on SVU, the whole intimidation game situation episode starts, as you mentioned, with the Olivia Benson, the detective, worrying about her son because he's just such a boy. Well, I mean, what were you expecting when you got a boy? And the things that are so terrible about this boy that she adopted is that he kicked down some books and was running around, while somehow the idea that girls that are sitting all quietly, like at their little table, and engaging in basically social ostracization, as girls are known to do, engaging in emotional pain and harassment, that is somehow not as big of a deal as a boy knocking down books. So already we have this preferred frame for that girls are perfect in everything they do and that boys are terrible even in the tiniest little thing that they do. And of course, the bigger monstrosity of this whole concept is that him being a boy instantly translates to him being a terrible rapist later on in life, which just goes to underscore the whole point of SVU, which is demonization of men for being men. That is their narrative, and that is what they've been pushing with their show. The whole point of SVU is to point out that be afraid of men, men are terrible, be afraid of them. And I had more points, but I kind of forgot them now, so I'm going to let...
Especially if they play video games.
Yeah, I think my favorite part was they were like, "Does your son play video games? Where does he play them? Where does he play the games?"
Cut to basement.
Yeah, it's not even afraid of men anymore. It's afraid of suburban young white boys. So pretty much all of America is
but you gotta love
potential terrorists now.
You gotta love how they got the mother's basement jab in there. They had to get the mother's basement jab. I think he lives in his mother's basement. But the point, your point, Cherry, about the mom, the mom that didn't understand her son, her little boy, is just that seeing that part of the show just made me want to reach into the screen and smack people. Like, you gotta love the insult of a TV show telling women that we're not supposed to know what boys are like when we become mommies. You know, like, we never ever knew any boys in our entire lives. We didn't grow up around any boys. There were no boys in our classes at school. We didn't have any neighbor boys. None of us had brothers, cousins, you know. Boys are a complete mystery, and then you become an adult and you give birth to one and you're like, what the fuck is this shit? You know, because you're so stupid. You never observed anything that happened around you as you were growing up, ever. And of
And
course,
yet
they all
something
have
being
to be
different from you is bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they all have to be exactly alike. They all have to knock things over and yell and play rowdy. None of them can wear pink. None of them can like to, hang out and tell ghost stories with a flashlight in your room instead of playing football, and stuff like that. Because, they're boys have to be boys. The same people that freak out over the idea that boys will be boys insist that boys will be boys and they're bad, And that just pissed me off watching that, and it was just like, what, did she grow up in a cave? How did she not know she had a son and he might be a son and some of his behavior might be different from hers and that he was going to have his own little unique personality that was not hers and not belonging to the girls and just him, right? But in the meantime, the rest of the episode. The whole episode struck me as feminist writers trying to get out of a television show what they couldn't get out of real life. The conditions that social justice warriors have been describing in the gaming community, like everything that they've been accusing gamers of, they had to put that in there because they can't make it happen, even no matter how much they talk about it, no matter how much they jab and push and prod and poke and try to trigger it by being abusive and everything online. None of the stuff that they've demanded that we be has come to fruition. So they had to put it into a TV show. It's a clear attempt to make themselves relevant, right down to mentioning Kotaku as if that site has any value anymore, and trying to see how many cool sounding NetSpeak terms they could misuse, abuse, or outright invent. There's stuff on there I've never heard of.
And the thing about that seems that it's teaching the older generations what to be afraid of. It really seemed like awful propaganda for the old people that are actually still watching television to learn what FPS means, what doxing means. They're basically training them to be the warriors that are anti-Gamergate.
Yeah.
It's worrying that Rachel mentioned reefer madness and how hilarious that is to us now. That 60, 70 years ago they were doing films like that, and weed's still illegal.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, it is still illegal, and there's still a fight to change that, and there's still people spreading.
Not where I am.
Well, it is where I am, and actually there's a push to legalize it here. And there is a huge information campaign that sounds almost exactly like reefer madness to scare everybody into not voting to legalize it. I mean, it's like you just laugh at some of the stuff that's being said. So
I would recommend everyone watching Reefer Madness, the 2006 Showtime musical. It is quite good satire.
It's also reminiscent of the film Cyberbully. It's just so bad, and it's so obviously propagandist.
Oh, that was my second point.
Well, I have one more thing to say too, but I want to know why they made the women tougher. Had to make the women tougher than they really were, or had to wonder why they made the women tougher than they really were, and I had to think about it for a while, and I realized if they gave an accurate portrayal, nobody would sympathize with the supposed victims. If they portrayed the women on that show the way the women who are in anti-Gamergate behave, then people would have been rooting against them. People would have been going, you know what, hit that bitch. That would have annoyed the audience so bad. They would have been like, why isn't this chick under arrest? Hasn't she been harassing people?
That would have been the end of it.
That would have been the end of it.
And having said that, nobody advocates violence here.
No, nobody
actually wants that sort of like
don't hit anybody.
Please do not hit anyone. You may feel the desire to hit someone, but then go get a hug.
Yeah.
That's much better.
But I totally
I would like
advocate
to
for
really quickly.
glitter.
I do, on the other hand, advocate.
Okay, guys. Let's.
I'm sorry, I forgot my point, but I remember it now. Thanks to you guys. I would just like to point out how the trope of not being able to distinguish reality from a game is the exact same tripe we were hearing about the D&D players about 20 years ago. They were having movies and shows coming out with how these D&D players are just satanic ritualists because they can't tell the difference between reality and D&D. And it's the exact same thing that we're going again 20 years later, 30 years later now. Can we just please be done with that?
Okay, go ahead, Hannah. Finish up. You've gone silent. All right, can I
Well,
speak now?
I will say this. If we are to the point where we have to mitigate every joke with "we don't advocate violence," then I will say the same thing that the fake Anita Sarkeesian said in the episode. They've won. Yeah. I'm sorry,
Well,
but it's and I'm not offended that you guys all jumped to say that. I don't advocate violence, although I do advocate violins. I think they sound wonderful. But we shouldn't have to do that. And I don't think that anyone listening to the show would have been inspired to go out and hit anybody. Because if they were going to do it, they would have been inspired by now by the behavior, and that much by the behavior of the people involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need to assume good of people until their actions prove otherwise.
Okay, so I'm gonna actually get my point out there, and it's to the point of the toughness of the women involved and what they did in response to what happened. Now, I just want to bring it back because Hannah will remember, or maybe not, to like a year ago when A Voice for Men was putting on its campaign or its conference, and it was receiving a considerable amount of pushback, including some pretty violent, although anonymous, threats. And I'll just read one of them out right now. No, you clearly hate women. This is quoting one of the anonymous threats. No, you clearly hate women. You're a fucking violent terrorist, and I will be armed and prepared when your trash infiltrates the city. You don't belong here. And what we did, Honey Badger Radio as a group did in response, is we said, essentially, we will go and we will present nonviolence to this. We're not going to run, but we will make a nonviolent presence in response to this kind of threats to quell free speech. So in response to some, that's, I think, I'll just throw it out here, but that threat, I think, is possibly worse than anything that Anita or the Literally Woos have received. Would you agree with me, or is it comparable?
No, I agree with that. I mean, basically, you got threats if you appeared in a public space to do something, and you did. And you did with the intention of sending a peaceful message. Say, look, if you're going to come here, you're going to have to kill us first. I mean, I know that sounds really raw, but, they were making threats. So, yes. I think
you think about it.
Quite parallel.
It's Anita Sarkeesian canceled a venue after being told that threats that people were going to shoot her were not credible. She canceled a venue, didn't show up, and then, linked her Patreon, made a big deal about it, and damseled and all kinds of stuff. Men's rights activists, including honey badgers and other women involved in the movement that don't want to call themselves that, showed up, and even when we couldn't use the originally intended venue, we showed up, we had our conference, we had a peaceful conference, and we enjoyed ourselves, and we networked, and we had a lot of discussion and learned a lot of things, and then we went home without incident, really.
Did you notice? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, but what I was saying specifically is that we, in response to these threats, a bunch of us actually said, just we're not going to back down.
Yeah, we didn't back down. We showed up.
Yeah, and we did it publicly, and that's that was our response to this. And what I'm trying to get is that aspect of being held to a standard of not just dealing with the shit that life throws you, but standing up to it and presenting a brave face and doing what's right. And you're right, Hannah. The people the women that this is actually based on are not sympathetic at all, because they don't stand up to, if they are being abused, they don't stand up to it. They don't seem to have anything. They don't have anything but that one note, I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim. And that's it.
It's probably why they don't like the episode, because people are going to watch it and think, well, who's this based on? Is it this Anita Sarkeesian? Well, she hasn't made any games whatsoever. Is it this Zoe Quinn? Oh, yeah, she's made a game. Is that some Amazonian warrior thing? Is it? Let's have a look. Oh, no, it's a text adventure. Nice.
Okay, let's let Rachel speak because she's been frantically signaling us with the semaphore,
Oh, but
the ding semaphore. No,
I'll
no.
let Rachel go first, even though I was first. But that's okay. Go ahead, Rachel.
Rachel,
Rachel.
we're filling air now. Come on, get on here.
Sorry, I thought I had I forgot that I was muted. Sorry. But anyway, the thing about it is that Punjabi actually was a racial slur in India. I think during English occupation. I could be wrong. But yeah, it definitely came up in the racial slur database when I looked it up earlier. I'm like, holy shit! How do you get away with giving somebody that as a surname? I mean, it takes 2 seconds to look up like the most popular surnames in India or Indian surnames in the United States.
You mean Patel?
2 seconds.
It should have been Patel.
Yeah, like Patel, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a real name. Punjabi is not. It's actually not even a real surname, and it's a racial slur.
It's a region. It's a freaking yeah.
Yeah, it's so. And here we have these people trying to portray this sort of politically correct view, and yet they manage to be sexist and racist because of course it's got to be Ice-T. It can't be any of the women that know any of this stuff at all because they can't be bothered. And of course the women there have to shame gamer men within the first couple seconds of the damn show. Actually no, the first couple minutes, because right as they get there they say, "Oh, these guys are overgrown children." Really? Do you have to do that?
They also sort of made fun of Ice-T at the end. They couldn't even let his gaming be all right because his rhetoric was that, "Oh, I just shot the bad guy." So even there, we're still bridging that line of gamers just do games to be violent.
Yeah, it's just, it was so ridiculous on so many different levels. And oh god, there's so many different references there, and I'm gonna just try and sum it up. But I mean, you had Red Chan, which is supposed to be like a combination of Reddit and an 8chan, and then you had uploading to the dark net. And that's the funniest thing, because anybody who knows about the deep web at all knows that this is just complete gobbledygook. That these guys
Darknet doesn't exist. It's not a thing.
No, but the deep web does exist.
But anything can be traced in a mechanical universe such as computers, and the idea that we have no idea where it's coming from, it's on the darknet, is
well,
very...
actually, there are ways of throwing off your trail, but the thing about it is that these people have no idea what the hell they're even talking about, and they're just trying to make it seem like they have this some kind of mystical power, and they're just they hacked into it. They hacked a big video sign in New York. And suddenly it's showing like the Killer Be Slaughtered fanboys with their weird like masks, these weird sort of semi-Asian looking masks.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of the guy from Korra, the first seison. It's basically the Guy Fawkes mask. It's the same idea.
Yeah, they're trying to make an allusion to Anonymous and stuff like that. It's just so incredibly ridiculous how they know nothing about gamer culture, considering how big it's become. None at all.
Also, I'm sorry, just real quick, it's also kind of funny how it's supposed to be an allusion to Anonymous and stuff, but it's literally just 3 guys. So they're basically they're sort of dismissed as like a small, non-threat.
By old people, for old people.
There's just so many ridiculous aspects of it. It's almost like, let me count the ways. I don't even know.
Okay, I have a slight clarification on the Punjabi thing, because it's getting discussed in chat, and there's argument over whether it's a racial slur or not. Punjab is the Indian character from Little Orphan Annie. It's also a region of India, and Punjabi is I hope I'm saying this right, is a language, but it is, when the British took over India, they used it as a derogatory term for the natives there.
Exactly.
So it would be like the N-word.
Yeah. So you fucked up. You done goofed.
It's naming people after a region, and using that as a way of belittling them, rather than, Like,
Yeah, it's a bit like
it's not belittling to me if someone says Ohioan, but if everybody said, well, people from Ohio are less than people from everywhere else, and then they used Ohioan as a slur, then it would become a slur. It would become something demeaning. And that's what this is as well.
Yeah, in Britain, the word "packy" is considered a slur just because it's been used like much like that, and because it sounds kind of like a swear word, even though all it means is someone from Pakistan. You know,
Yeah.
that's what happens.
Yeah. I just wanted to say one thing. I know that Rachel kind of touched on this already, but I noticed that. Did you guys notice who saw the episode that the women on the show, except for the ones that were developers themselves or gamers, but the cops, the female cops on the show, were all, not only did they not know any of the gaming lingo and not like quite understand it, but they were also like above all of it. But they were above the whole thing, and they were even saying, "Why is this even a thing?" And you know, aside, Ice-T was the most entrenched in it, like he knew the most about it. But then even the other male cops were like more knowledgeable about this male-dominated culture, or at least that's how they were presenting it. In addition, I don't know if you noticed, there was a bit of a misnomer when they were asking the girl who got groped in the really cheaply made bathroom that looks like it was thrown together like the week before. They were talking to her about the game Amazonian Warriors, and she said Amazonian Warriors was made to be non-violent, and yet later when they're talking to Punjabi, she says that you can make peace or war. So they literally just didn't really care about what the content was. But it really bothered me that the women were above all of it, and it was like they were so far removed from this male culture. But I thought that gaming was something that was a space that women wanted to be a part of. Why would they also at the same time be completely uninterested in it? So I don't know. It's just...
Yeah, that's a pretty bad contradiction there. And it's like it strikes me as an effort to portray women as superior, that they're more mature and adult, and that they don't get into this kind of thing. But if they want to get into it, they should be welcome. You know, like. And yes, women and girls have been part of gaming culture since before it included video games, since long before it included video games, since before wargaming evolved into RPG games. It's ridiculous to act like this is something new, and it never happened before. And the show is just kind of playing into social justice warriors' self-important, obsessive persecution fantasies, and where they got to convince everyone around them that like there's something new and there's something special, and entire groups must be more focused on them than the group's unifying interests, whether it was comic books or whether it was gaming, whether it was heavy metal, regardless of what the interest is in. You know, these groups are focused instead on their interest. And there's no women involved until social justice warrior women come in, and then as soon as they step in, all of a sudden they're the most important thing, and suddenly, you know, the in spite of the fact that you know there have been women involved since the beginning, that everybody's got to drop everything and focus on them now, and they are now like the whole cause is to get rid of them.
Sherry?
Yes, I would also a tiny little subtle thing they slipped in there. There are just so many subtle jabs that they did. One of which was the fact that, well, not so subtle maybe, because the female detective went, "Oh, don't worry, guys, I got this." Where they're pointing out that conventions that have like E3 and things, Comic Cons, whatever, that everyone's so engrossed and so loud, and everyone's just so involved in what's going on the screen, because that's more interesting than real life apparently, that when they hear there's trouble in the women's room, nobody bats an eye, nobody does anything. So that kind of goes back to those policymakers of all these conventions, where the, you know, about the convention is like 5 times smaller than the policy of what is allowed and not allowed to happen at the convention. So it's just definitely catering to and pandering to that SJW slant on everything.
They did this really creepy thing too, Cherry, where as the girl was being attacked in the bathroom, it would cut back and forth between her struggling, which was the worst struggle I've ever seen, by the way, and these guys cheering this, this Killer Be Slaughtered game, and the cheering would ramp up, and the girls, like the girl in the bathroom getting like attacked by these two men or young guys or whatever, would also ramp up, and so they kind of like they were trying to draw a parallel between these two things, like essentially saying violent games equals violent men, like right in the beginning.
But no, there's been so many hours played of Call of Duty, and yet no actual murder statistics have gone up. And also, as we mentioned, they did the guys in the hat and the guy in the hoodie were the two guys that assaulted her. So the gamers are these dude bros. Well, wait a minute. Are they dude bros like this Chris Cluvia asshole who is making fun of all the gamers because he's a footballer and that's all he does? And he's a aggro because he just went out and did this horrible post about how gamergaters need to die. And so what are gamers? Are they dude bros like this aggro guy, or are they neckbeards that live in their mom's basements? Make up your mind.
Either way, they're total FALs.
Which is totally made up. It's a slant on the PUA thing, which AFC is the proper term. Average frustrated chump is what they were trying to do. FAL doesn't. What is that?
FAL. It's the worst thing. Am I right?
Yeah. Maybe we should get to the comics section, though.
Okay. All right. Well,
I gotta get to my
the
ink
GamerGate
thing.
thing is so good, though. But I mean, the SVU thing, it's so good. I heard on Kotaku that it was better than Civ 5 with the Brave New World expansion pack. All right. So I'm gonna talk about female Thor. Son of a bitch. This fucking thing pisses me off so bad.
Yeah.
All right. So what is my beef with the new Thor? I'm glad you asked. The Mighty Thor was a comic series dating back to the 1960s by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. They wanted to come up with a character that could go toe-to-toe with the Hulk. That was the original concept. But in the process, they came up with a very interesting character based on Norse myth by the same name. While superheroes like Superman and Captain Marvel were allegories to ancient myths made modern, Thor was the myth itself. For 50 years and up, Thor defended Midgard and other realms from threats, both foreign and domestic, solved immense riddles, went on epic quests, formed alliances, rivalries, and made bitter enemies. It was a fun read for a child like me who loved mythology. He was at times boorish and arrogant and gregarious, but that's what I really liked about him. He was also well-meaning and just and had a heart of gold. I know this may sound corny to some of you more cynical types, but I think that this was his appeal. Then, in 2015, after Thor had 2 films made and the character appeared in the billion-dollar grossing Avengers film, with more films on the way, it was announced by Marvel Comics that Thor would be a woman. Now, let me clarify. Not that Thor was bewitched and turned into a woman by evil magic, or not that a woman would need to use the hammer for a short time and have his powers, but that Thor would find himself unworthy for reasons we still do not know to wield Mjolnir, and then a woman whom we still do not know the true identity of would then pick it up and become Thor, the goddess of thunder. She wouldn't just use the hammer and get his powers, she would actually take his identity. Upon reading the first issue, I had some concerns. One, why does Thor have to be made unworthy? I mean, this has happened before, yes, but we don't know the reasons. And then why is a woman suddenly worthy in order for this to work out as a concept for a story arc? Number 2, Odin himself was unable to lift the hammer. This is important to point out because this has never happened before. Odin, the father of Thor, has always been able to pick it up because he's the one who had it made. No one has been able to question that ever. Number 3, why was Odin such a dick to his wife? Now, he's been boorish himself at times and pig-headed, but even when Odin appears to be at his most stubborn, he is wise beyond other people's perception. In the first film is a good example of this. Odin appears to act brashly in punishing Thor, but is really trying to impart wisdom by teaching him about humility. This happens in the first film. In the comic, he simply appears chauvinistic to his wife. He calls her, woman. He dismisses her outright while they're fighting over the hammer. It becomes a battle of the sexes. It sets the tone in the first issue before the story even begins, which made me wonder, where are they going with this? Number 4, when the woman takes the hammer and becomes Thor, the original hero, I can't call him Thor because he's not, picks up a random guy's axe and goes by the name Odinson, which is Thor's last name. Why does this woman claim the name Thor as if it is a title? Thor is his name. This makes no fucking sense at all, and it begins to stink. The now emasculated Odinson goes on some pilgrimage to set things right, I suppose, in the hopes of becoming worthy of picking up the hammer again. The woman Thor immediately goes to Earth, because this all unfolded on the moon, to all new, never-before-seen, to do all kinds of new, never-before-seen female superheroics. Because we, of course, every man She-Thor runs into from this point questions why Thor is now a woman. It is a fair question, but one, of course, that never gets answered, perhaps because Joss Whedon once said, because you keep asking me that question. And as we all know, vagina is the answer to its own question. Here's where things get really fucking sour for me. In issue number 5, Thor encounters a robbery in progress being conducted by one Absorbing Man and Titania. For the purposes of this discussion, Absorbing Man's name Creel is going to be used. For those who don't know, Creel and Titania are like the Bonnie and Clyde of the Marvel Universe. They have been partners and lovers in crime since the 1970s. They have had each other's backs most of the time. They rob banks together. They go to prison together. They've run into the Avengers, like Thor and others, on multiple occasions. In this fucking comic, there's a scene where Creel asks why there is a female Thor, using the same language and arguments and rhetoric that many comics fans raise about these same choices in the comic. It is important to note that Absorbing Man is a thuggish-looking Neanderthal of a man. Doesn't wear a shirt, wears striped jail pants, and uses a giant wrecking ball. He's meant to be not very bright and basically a henchman. So basically, Creel was made to be the face of those primitive nerds, those fucking pigs that would dare question why these changes were made. Creel even made the claim that feminists were ruining everything and were responsible for the existence of female Thor. These fucking writers went too fucking far. This isn't even a subversive approach to commenting or addressing questions and concerns about these literary choices. These assholes were directly insulting people in their fan base for daring to question them. And for what? What the holy fuck is the goal? To make sure that Thor is accepted without question? To simply take a giant dump on their fan base? What is the need here? And it gets fucking worse. After Creel is dealt with in a dismissive fashion, by the way, this is worth pointing out because normally Creel was, Absorbing Man was made to be a challenge for Thor, and they're supposed to, there were times where he almost beat him. But in this particular issue, he's dealt with in one page because vagina. Titania gives her partner a finishing blow and tells Thor she will not fight her and will instead stand down. Why? Out of respect for what she is doing. Are you fucking kidding me with this shit? A supervillain surrenders to a superhero because they're both women, and they, by default, have to respect each other. I call fucking bullshit on this. This is not storytelling. This is not adventure. This is fucking propaganda. And as a result, it is shit. Sure, propaganda existed in our comics during World War II, and as such, the stories were pretty flat. But this is 60 years later. And while I don't think that superheroes should be campy and shallow all the time, this is just a ham-fisted, obvious, and lazy attempt on the part of the writers. When I made my case about this to others, I got very weak attempts at arguments. So please allow me to get ahead of the ball, because I'm sure that some people will raise them. And I'm going to address them now in case you feel tempted to challenge me. Number 1, other people have lifted the hammer before, therefore other people have been Thor before. Wrong! Other people have lifted the hammer for short periods of time, but never have actually taken the name of Thor. They had his power, as it says on the hammer, but they did not take his identity. Captain America used it for a short time, stayed Captain America. Hulk lifted it for a brief moment, remained the Hulk. Storm from the X-Men was given her own hammer by Loki as part of a scheme, did not take Thor's name. The horse-headed alien known as Beta Ray Bill lifted a hammer for a short time, was then seen as worthy, and was given his own fucking hammer, and is now similar to Thor, but is his own person, fighting threats on the far side of the galaxy. Finally, for a time, Thor was turned into a frog, found his hammer, and lifted it, becoming Thor. But he already was Thor. He just was in a frog's body. Even Superman wielded the hammer for a short time in a crossover book, but remained Superman. Number 2. So a good story can include how a female character might react to sexism? It certainly can. But then how is this an empowering story? If a woman's story of heroic deeds has to revolve around the terrible, terrible men that surround her and how oppressed she is all the time, it makes for a dull narrative that is wrought with unfair assertions about our world. Plus, it still becomes about men instead of a journey about a hero that just happens to be female. If we don't want to focus on gender, maybe we shouldn't focus on gender. And this kind of narrative is very common today. The very frustrating Agent Carter TV show is a very good example of this, which I will get into in a future show. Number 3, as soon as that's the theme, is it automatically pandering, the theme of females reacting to sexism? It can be pandering, yes. In the case of this female Thor, the choice by Marvel to do this for this reason was very explicit. The announcement was all over daytime TV, and the media had a blast with it. When comics were for shunned nerds, nobody gave a shit about Thor, even though female characters, good ones I might add, were commonplace and well written without the need to make gender the focus or a defining trait. Number 4, and that experience automatically is exempt from character development? It's not exempt, and I never made the case that it was. But if this femme Thor is Marvel's response to the moaning of gender ideologues who demand a strong female superhero, hint it was, this is a piss-poor way of going about it. Number 5, so this is one topic that automatically should not be talked about. It's talked about over and over ad nauseum on the internet, on television, in film. No one, not even me, is making the claim that stories like this cannot or should not exist. That is censorship, and I am very much against that. But what I am saying is that this is propagandist, which is just calling it like I see it. And ultimately, it will be accused of being sexist once the writers give Thor his hammer back, because eventually they will. Number 6, my strong female characters, my diversity in comics. Are you fucking kidding me? This is how I fucking know you don't know what comics are, and you don't care to know. They are countless, and I mean countless, female, black, gay characters that could easily carry their own titles. Here are a few examples from Marvel alone. Rogue, Storm, Misty Knight, Firestar, Ms. Marvel, Luke Cage, Falcon, Northstar, Sasquatch, Thing, Thundra, Sif, Valkyrie, Brother Voodoo, Shang-Chi, Sunfire, Vindicator, Captain Marvel, Photon, Black Panther, Blade, Warbird, Scarlet Witch, Wasp, She-Hulk, and that's just off the top of my fucking head. These are characters that I loved, and I continue to love to this day. And it wasn't because of the groups that they belonged to, nor their position in the progressive stack. It was because they, wait for it, were good characters. I don't think that I am somehow exceptional in believing that. While it may be good to explore these facets of the characters mentioned, it would be better if those remained facets and that were not all that they embodied. It would make for a better and much lazy writing if that was not the sole defining trait of these characters. If Marvel and the people behind this bullshit idea are not aware, this is going to fail. This is going to fail because it will not be permanent. We need to take something established and popular and change it. This is their idea. What is the most popular? Which of the most popular male characters is best? I know. Let's take Thor and make him a woman. The problem with this logic, and I assume they either cannot see this or they don't care because they just want to sell comics through the controversy, is that eventually they're going to have to give Thor his hammer back and his identity. And when they do, the female character that replaced him will be regulated to some memory of what she once was, someone who needed to take a man's job in order to be noticed for her own achievements instead of making her own mark. And feminists will complain because that's what they fucking do. They come into a space where people like me wants to work in. They change everything to suit their own politics and make themselves feel comfortable. And when things go back to normal, because in the world of superheroes they always go back to normal, they will bitch and moan that they didn't make their own mark. You didn't make your own mark because you didn't try. Instead, you tried to make someone else's work into something you wanted without making a fucking effort to build your own property.
Are you done, Brian?
Yeah, I'm done. I could go further, but I...
Okay, I just want to get in here because I'm a comics fan. I'm actually a fan of the writer. Correct me if I'm wrong, it was Jason Aaron who wrote this thing. And he also wrote one of my favorite series called Scalped. And if Jason Aaron ever hears this, I'm probably your one female fan of Scalped. And I'm not going to say that it has dulled my appreciation for Scalped, but I probably won't pick up anything more of yours. This is sort of it. Like you've crossed the Rubicon as far as I'm concerned for me as a reader with this. If you're willing to sell out, or if these are your actual values, then I don't. Either way, forget it. But just to tell you a bit about Scalped, it was a crime noir set on an Indian reservation, and it was pretty brutal. Lots and lots and lots of violence and sex, and I actually got into it because I thought he had a really interesting take on a gay character whose name was Shunta. He was the second in command of the mob boss on the reservation who had the casino, and he was like a really, really, really tough guy. You would never have known. He was gay, and I thought that was an interesting take, and I really liked that character. Not just because he was gay. In fact, I wouldn't have liked it just because he was gay, but because he was really well drawn. And the relationship between him and the main boss was really well drawn. It was a really interesting relationship. And to think that he went from portraying I guess a minority like that, and I hesitate to call a woman a minority, a blonde woman a minority, but whatever, to this. Like he can write a minority character. He can write one of the social justice warriors Pokemons, because that's basically how they treat them. Got to catch them all, have them in our little collection, and actually give the character justice, make it an interesting character with an interesting character arc, make you want to follow and find out what happens. Of course, the end, Shunka ended up dying, but there was an episode in which he explored more of Shunka's sexuality and a relationship with another gay man in a different reservation, and it was set up like it was almost going to be this martyrdom, that this other gay guy died because of homophobia, and it would have this incredible twist. I don't want to give it up because you need to read this story. It was just amazing, and he actually used these stereotypical tropes. He actually used this author actually used social justice-based stereotypes, like narrative stereotypes that social justice warriors invariably use, and he used that to set up a plot twist. I can't believe how far he's fallen.
Yeah. Hannah, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I had a couple of things to say. My perspective on this sort of comes from that feminist screech that women must have their safe spaces because the rest of the world belongs to men. It's one of the things that I've been so tired of hearing about. Every place else is men's safe place. Every place else belongs to men, so women must have their safe spaces, and those safe spaces must be, impregnable by any male presence, and it's an ever-growing list. Originally from, we're talking about this specific narrow set of experiences as experienced by women, to anything women want to talk about has to become a safe space because women are there, and now all of a sudden the rest of the world that supposedly belongs to men also has to be feminized. It also has to conform to the standards of specifically the safe space creating women. And this push in comics, this push to feminize male characters in comics, whether it's going to be just this or whether it's going to happen over and over again. This is it's sort of in conjunction with that, and it's sort of the opposite of that. While women's spaces are supposed to be sacred, this pushes the statement that men can't have spaces. That rather than the rest of the world belonging to men, it shows the rest of the world is open and welcoming to men only by women's leave. And as soon as enough women complain, someone will feel compelled to change it for them in the name of all women, whether we agree or not. And I think it's really pitiful, just absolutely pitiful, that they have to, instead of, like, if they're not satisfied with what's already in existence, that's their problem. If they can't look at the vast variety of female characters in comics and find one they like, that's their problem. It's pitiful as hell. that didn't inspire somebody to come up with a female character that is an original character and not a swipe of a male character. Like, women can't accomplish anything without taking it from men, really. How not only misandric, that not only teaching that men are tainted and that men are unnecessary and that men are in the way, but also misogynistic, teaching that women can't really do anything on their own. We can't have anything of our own merits. We don't have anything that we don't take from men. What kind of an idiotic, poorly thought out, craptastic lesson does this comic teach? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, in reading the dialogue, it was like somebody put a gun to this guy's head and said, write feminist dialogue. And so he did. It was so stilted and so fake and so uninspired. I kind of wonder if somebody made him do it. Somebody said, well, you're continuing with us depends on you doing this. Because it just didn't strike me as at all an artistic creation or something that the writer did because he wanted to do it. And that was it.
Anna?
All right. Yeah, sorry. I had a few points. I was just wondering which one to start with first. But I guess let's just go with as per Brian's reading. So we have Odin being a misogynist to his wife, as per, of course, that idea that men back in the day were all horrible men that abused their women, and there's this bastardization of history that we have currently, and a total blind spot and amnesia when it comes to actual women's role in history, such as, just an example off the top of my head, during the World War II, women, there were basically warehouses of women who were coders and decoders that worked with the Enigma machine, and there was actually a woman that actually worked with Alan Turing on the Enigma machine to specifically break the Germans' code. And the coders and the faxers and the people doing little Morse code, there was and the computing environment of having actual live people computing little parts of basically the prehistoric computer calculator kind of thing. And they had women doing these things. They were literally many hundreds of women in STEM, even as far back as World War II. And of course, before that, we have plenty of evidence from history that women occupied central important roles, but none of that matters to the local modern rhetoric. And moving on from there, we have Thor taking, well, this female taking Thor's identity, and how exactly is that not exactly the same thing that feminists argue about tropes of taking a man and putting boobs on them? Well, you took Thor and gave him a vagina. Basically, you literally taking his name, taking his identity. This is a total satire of what feminism is attempting to do, if I didn't know any better. And of course, the next point is the Titania and this Thor woman. They have this vagina loyalty situation. So we have an idea that if men are loyal with each other and band together, they are scum, shitlords, pieces of shit that need to die. And misogynists, of course. But women must band together. So it is completely ignoring a female's individual choice to not have vagina loyalty, to choose who she works with and who she doesn't, and sometimes standing up against other women should be a prerogative of women, but we're not really allowed that. We're supposed to be completely in league with each other, regardless of each other's political, moral, or ethical inclinations. And I just find the whole thing to be extremely disgusting.
Well, if you're done, I
Yes.
wanted to add to that point. I've spoken before about the fact that female characters completely lack moral contrast. So you don't often see shows where one female character will embody a principle, or to use an example, imagine Magneto and Professor X. Now Magneto is definitely on the villain side of the anti-hero scale, but in a lot of ways you can sort of identify with his approach to a degree, and you can also understand Professor X's approach, and they are opposed over a principle. There's a huge moral contrast between those two characters. You often don't see that with female characters. There's almost no moral contrast between female characters. You can, I mean, in a few words, you can explain the moral contrast between Professor X and Magneto. Magneto has an extreme final solution response to integrating with human beings. Professor X has a more a desire to integrate in a positive way, and he believes that mutants and humans can get along. Magneto believes they can't, and it's just dog eat dog. And you understand the relationship between them. They are fighting over a particular principle. Each has their own point of view. Each has their way of advancing their own point of view. Each has their own arguments for their own point of view, and you can sort of buy into both arguments to a degree. And you don't see that with female characters. It is extremely difficult to find a show in which you can reduce or you can say that about a relationship between two female characters, that you can give a very an interesting but succinct summation of how they compare and contrast in their main point of difference, because there is no moral contrast. And this Titania versus female Thor buys right into that problem about writing women in most modern fiction, most modern media, is that this is not just no moral contrast, because you can sort of forgive this vague moral pudding that most, like moral warm gelatin that most female characters seem to occupy, this gelatinous space where there's no real differences, and maybe they're friendly or they have a big sister little sister relationship. That's about it. You can sort of forgive that when it's just oversight. But this is actually taking an existing moral contrast that should actually exist. There should be an actual moral contrast between female Thor and Titania. And not just because she's a villain and female Thor is a hero, but because an essential part of her character is that she doesn't want another woman to be stronger than her. So if she sees a strong female character, she wants to fight to prove that she is the strongest. And all of that is erased. That all of the moral contrast that should be there is erased and replaced with more warm, piss-warm gelatin. And that is, it's so, I mean, if you look at this creation from an identity, an identity of femalehood, decoupled from being a victim, where you don't actually embrace this connection between womanhood and victimhood, and you look at this, and the fact that they've just erased the consequences, the moral contrast between these two characters, the consequences of Titania's actions, any kind of drama or passion between these two female characters, they just erased it and dumped a whole shitload of goo on it, would be offensive. But feminists just feel pandered to. Okay, you wanted to say something, Brian.
No, I was just saying it's disgusting. It's disgusting because
this is misogyny.
Yeah, I mean it's the worst kind. It is the soft bigotry of low expectations. And yeah. I mean that is just it just fucking bugs the shit out of me, because I used to read so many of these books. I have a collection of the old Thors from the 60s that Kirby and Lee made together, and they were just so much better. And that's, you would think, the thing is that we know it's comics, right? And they're like low culture entertainment, you know. They're relatively banal, but they're fun, and that's, you know, and if you're gonna do a message, you can do that. You can talk about ethics and morals. You can do that stuff, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But if you're gonna do it, you should do it well. And this is done so badly, and the reason why is because it's being fueled by this message. Like, the message comes before anything else, and so it overrides all of it, and that's how you get all of this shit. And there are people who like this shit. I mean, the shit is like sold out, you know. And I've read some the local comic shop that's pretty feminist. They reviewed it and they loved how, you know, the feminist part of it, and they loved that Absorbing Man gets knocked the fuck out for questioning it. They loved it. And I'm like, do you guys not think that this looks like shit right now?
Well, let's do the classic gender reversal.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
You will see that to accept this narrative as legitimate, you have to actually look at the world in terms of women being weak and men being... So, in other words, anybody who reads this narrative and doesn't find it problematic already exists within the point of view that women are weak and men are strong. And you can tell that the audience, every person listening to this who read those pages and said, yeah, go girl, or oh, well, it's okay, it's a little heavy-handed. Everybody who bought into it, even a little bit, bought into it from a narrative, from a personal, emotional narrative in which they believe that women are weak and men are strong. Because if you don't have it, if you don't have that lens to parse this stuff through, it doesn't look like what you think it looks like. And I'll show you what it looks like by just simply reversing the genders. You have a male character who has taken over the identity of a female character. Not just taken over the identity, but this is an act of boy power. Because women take stuff from men, and he's sticking it to the woman. And that character encounters another male villain who immediately, instead of sets aside the fact that he's a villain and this is supposedly a hero, to side with this newly male character in order to punch out his wife, pound her right in the kisser, knock her the fuck out, lay her down, and say, hey, yeah, even though I'm a villain and my wife is fighting you, I'm going to punch her, and I'm going to go for your side. And I'm going to support you in taking this identity away from a woman, because that's boy power. That sounds like you've just created a ghoulish pair of men who have no sympathy. The only way that the characters that you've created have sympathy when they act like this is if you cannot see that they have any power. I mean, that you literally are transferring the agency onto the men. You're saying that this is an act of defiance against powerful men by weak women. That's the only way they can retain sympathy, is if you already think of them as weak, and that they're punching up and not punching down or punching sideways. Do you guys understand what I'm saying, or am I talking like nobody freaking gets it?
No, you're
I
making
totally
sense.
get it.
We understand what you're talking about.
Because if you actually gave female Thor and Titania, or Titania.
Like titanium without the M.
Okay, Titania. If you actually gave female and Thor and Titania the same level of expectation of responsibility for their consequences, the same level of expectation of acting like they have power, and when you have a character who has power, who is strong, if they don't act in a way consistent with making sure that strength doesn't become a weapon directed towards people who don't have it and are vulnerable, if you don't give that to their action, if you give that to their actions, if you judge them in the same way you judge men's actions, with consequences, with moral expectations, they are appalling characters. They're just horrible people. So every person who doesn't look at that and say, my God, this is either character assassination of this person who's taken on the mantle of Thor, and also of Titania.
Titania.
Right? And also of Titania. If this doesn't register as either character assassination or they've created the most appalling human beings, then you are essentially looking at this story from an expectation of female weakness, and an expectation that you are just pulling away the consequences of women's actions from these female characters. You're pulling away the expectation of not just being moral, but if you are a strong female character, of being exceptionally moral in order to retain your status as a hero. And even with this Bonnie and Clyde reference, Titania, should at least have some morality, some honor among thieves, some loyalty to her partner that you should respect, and she should retain to remain sympathetic.
Well, they were a couple. They
Yes.
were a couple. They were banging. That's the thing.
Yeah, this is domestic violence if it was a male character. If you were giving female characters the same consequences that male characters have narratively, if you weren't looking at it from a point of view of women being weak, thus every action that they take against men is justified by the fact that men are stronger. So, yeah, this is not just pandering to feminists, it's perpetuating the very gender roles that they say that they are against.
But that's what feminists do. They do perpetuate the very gender roles that they say they are against. They just only do it when it is to their advantage so that they can exploit those gender roles for political power. But you know what this comic reminded me of? And I said it in our chat, but I think it really needs to be said. I don't know if anybody else remembers these or if they're still making them, or I'm sure they're probably still making them. There was a company that made these little, like 2-inch tall by like 4 or 5-inch wide comic-themed tracts that were religious tracts, and I think it was called Chick Publications. It might be.
I
Chick
remember those.
that did the parodies, and yeah, and if you lived in a religious, really religious area, like religious enough where there would be people who objected to Trick or Treat Night because it celebrated, a satanic holiday, you were almost guaranteed to, like, which it doesn't, but they would say that anyway. But you were almost guaranteed to come home with one of those in your Trick or Treat bag. I almost always got one in my trick-or-treat bag. This is a chick tract. This is the ultimate chick tract. It was the whole point of this was to preach at people and teach people to feel condemned if they don't worship at the holy church of feminism. And it strikes me the resemblance. That's what it actually sounds like, reads like to me. It was a chick tract. It sounds the same stilted type of talking to each other to say something to the reader when they're barely not talking to the reader. They're barely not breaking the fourth wall, and it's like the entire dialogue develops this this fake, I don't know, it just unfelt sense to it, because it's not really intended for the characters to be talking to each other for their benefit. The characters are talking to each other to get a message across to the reader. And that it just strikes me that it's like one of those little religious tracts that people used to stuff in my trick-or-treat bag when I was a kid to tell me how bad Halloween was, and that I was, by asking people for candy on Beggars Night, I was worshiping Satan. I was going to go straight to hell. Yeah, that's what this is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The dialogue is super obvious. Like, especially from Absorbing Man, this is the thing that really fucking pissed me off, because they get the most, crude Neanderthal-looking guy. He's like a pin-headed thug, right? Not smart, generally brash, and he basically immediately starts speaking in the voice of the people who were critical of the idea of a female Thor by saying, "Damn feminists are ruining everything. You want to be a chick superhero? Fine. Who the hell cares? But get your own identity. Thor's a dude, one of the last manly dudes still left." Like, why is he complimenting his enemy? He's not speaking in his own voice. He's speaking in the voice of the people who the comic is trying to criticize. And these are the same people that made this industry as big as it is. These are the same motherfuckers that spent their money on comics to build it up, to become big enough that these companies can make films about it afterwards. I mean, that is the most insulting thing, is that people like me built the company up. We spent money, whatever we had, on comics. And I actually want to make them. Like, I'm making one now, but that's something I want to do. but I don't want to enter a world like this. Like, this is not that is not what I want to do, and it really angers me. I mean, like, that's just it. Basically, it feels a lot like, you know, what you said about those chick tracts, where it's obviously pandering to send a specific message, but at the same time, there is a Gamergate-ness about it, where, you know, it's critical of the very audience that built the industry up for having an opinion that may run counter to some interested people, and then that is very, very, very frustrating to read.
Yes, I think. Am I next?
Yeah, go ahead. I got a final thought on it, but I'll wait till the end.
Okay. I thought someone was ahead of me, but okay. I don't know what's going on with Rachel. She's been really quiet.
I'm here. Well, I've been quiet because I don't want to talk over, and I don't know if my reception is really all that great right now.
Well, it's just fantastic now.
Good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds great. Talk away.
That's because I'm on the computer. Yeah, it was really disheartening because it ended up being exactly as I expected, which was really sad to me. Of like, a part of me was like, okay, is there any way that this could be redeemable at all? You know, a part of me just hoping, like, let's hope that they're going somewhere with this. That this is, and then Alison linked me to that part of the comic, and I was like,
Actually, I think it was Hannah who found it
oh, or
first.
Hannah, yeah, whoever posted it in the Skype chat was, I saw that and I was just,
Yeah, that was me.
it was so cringeworthy. I'm like, how? How do you get away with this? Really?
Well, they don't. I mean, ultimately.
Jeez, how do you, it was so panders. I'm like, you might as well be screaming, feminism, 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 feminism. You don't approve of my feminism? Take my feminism. I'm gonna whack you in the head with my hammer until you take my feminism. Take it!
Well,
that's
what's it going to take for a single bad word about feminism to get put in any history book ever?
Well,
Maybe
it's
this is
gonna.
how far we have to go. We have to completely destroy a Norse god. Will that be
Yeah.
enough?
Well, the reality, I think that we're gonna have to give up we're gonna have to give up the history books to feminism, but maybe history won't be written in books. So there you go. But yeah, what I wanted to point out as well is something about Joss Whedon says I write strong female characters because I keep getting asked how do you write strong female characters? Well, that's sort of arrogant, Joss. I mean, you're presuming that you do write strong female characters. I would say no, and I'm going to get a whole bunch of fanboys in the comments screaming at me about that. But I think that we have very, very low expectations of what a strong female character is, and those low expectations are perpetuated by this constant mythology of victimhood that gets poured down our throats. So we have this lens where we see women's actions without consequences, without any moral importance. And so a strong female character just puts her little fist in a man's face and says, "You're not going to tell me what to do," and then gets wet when he puts her over his knee and spanks her. That's a strong female character because, you know, ultimately she can't really stand up to patriarchy because patriarchy has to be all powerful, or she can't keep her identity as a victim. Boy. And then they say it's progressive. Anyway, I'm not sure where I'm going. I'm petering off with that one.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I just want to say one other thing. I'm convinced now. I mean, I was for a while now, but I'm convinced that feminists don't build anything. They just wait until other people and other communities and other cultures have worked years or decades to invest and make something that was once considered the interests of shunned outcasts and bullied losers into something cool and profitable. Then they swoop in like fucking sturges to make it into something for them by sucking the fun out of them, using the sword of critical theory and the shield of political correctness to take it, poison it, and fuck it up.
Yeah, under traditionalism, the adage was sort of true that men build and women decorate. And in the age of feminism, men build and women come in and pretend they built it.
Well, no, they still decorate, and they pretend that they claimed it.
Wait. That's not entirely true. They do make their own interesting singing, the scream singing. Remember the famous scream singing?
Oh, wait, and yogurt. They make yogurt now.
From their vaginas.
Is that edible? How is that?
Yes, apparently. Apparently it is, yeah.
Well, I suppose it wouldn't be all that much different from oral sex. Just with the dairy product involved.
Oh gosh! Oh, you guys gotta read that article. It is fucking hilarious. They were talking about how at first, like the first go around with the recipe was overly sour. Oh, you think? maybe wash there with some soap first.
Jeez, I wonder how that happened.
I mean, it's just so and they're like,
it's not because that area is acidic or anything.
All right, and with the vaginal jokes, I think I'm calling it. What do you think, Brian?
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, Hannah, go ahead.
As long as it's not vagine related.
It's okay. It's okay.
Oh,
We'll just put blueberries in it.
It's the thing I dropped into our little chat. From Saturday Night Live to the media representation, to the lesson plan, to the SVU, episode, what social justice warriors in entertainment and news media are demonstrating here is that they have to rely on fantasy and controlled spaces to feel relevant because they can't get that in the real world.
Yeah. One of the things before we close out, I guess, that I wanted to say is that what I find really interesting is that in spaces, in creative spaces, where there is no political correctness and the people in those spaces don't give a fuck, you actually get, and I don't think this is a surprise, a lot more interesting characters and a lot more diversity if that's what you want. Like, for example, in Japan, in their manga and anime, you can find fucking anything because they don't give a shit about what people think. So you can find it. And that's one of the things that we're missing here, is that we give a shit too much and it gets in the way, and that's really frustrating when you want to be creative. They've even tried to redefine what art is. That was the thing I was talking about just before the show. SJWs are trying to define what art is. They're changing it, or they're trying to, and it's really fucking annoying.
Well, yeah, because they're gonna change it because they can't do art. Their art is terrible.
Yeah, they don't know. It is terrible. It's fucking mattresses, carrying mattresses around your campus.
And they've replaced this political awareness. They have replaced any kind of craft, and I include in that philosophical craft. I mean, there's a certain art to actually thinking about the world and our place in it, and thinking about how we relate. And going really deep with it, and I think people who know me know that I do that a lot. And I think that's an art in some way, is an art of thinking about things. But they don't want to think about. They don't even want to do that. They don't want to think about their ideology. I mean, I try to get them to think about their ideology, and they call me a misogynist. And they just want everything to be conforming to their black and white narrative, in which they are the arbiters of morality, and they get to decide what is expressed. And we know this, so let's move on to something approaching.
Right. We leveled up.
Yeah.
We're beyond shooting paint eggs out of our vages in order to make stuff.
And if some of us don't have vages, then we will give those who are lacking vages synthetic vages with synthetic muscles, so that they can also do vaginal painting.
I don't need no stinking vages.
What? Oh God!
Don't forget vaginal knitting.
Oh yes, also vaginal knitting.
Can they actually do menstrual paintings then?
Some women do.
No, I'm saying the ones who don't have vages. We can't. Oh, I guess if a woman just kind of lets it go in a cup and then they share. But.
Let it go.
Ew.
Let it go.
Okay, I'm officially
Brian, Brian.
I know, it's great.
Brian,
Okay, yes.
where do you play?
Cut to basement.
Where do you play the games, Brian?
Where do you play the game?
Where does he play?
Where do you play? Where does he play?
Where's the trigger?
I play in the only safe space men have, basements. It's where we can play our video games, D&D, and make our ISIS videos.
Mm-hmm.
I find this hilarious because I spent a lot of my teenage years in the basement. That's where our dark room was, and that's where I developed my film and printed my pictures.
Well, I can't really be a basement dweller myself because we don't have basements out here in South Carolina.
Well, I have a crawl space. Does that count? I can go down.
Closet,
Oh, that
but-
makes you the ultimate MRA. You don't even have a full basement, you have a crawl space.
Yeah,
I go
yeah,
down in the
I
crawl
only have-
space with the spiders.
My crawl space is way too full of things for me to crawl in there.
You mean like Harry Potter's bedroom when he was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Okay.
I
So
think,
is it time to shill for shekels?
what do you think about me just giving people a break from the shilling? Or
Yeah.
I could just say, you know what? If you like the show, consider patroning us at www.patreon.com.
Are you interested in raping game developers and beating their pinchy little faces until they're leaking brain? You hate sluts because they're whores and sluts? Then donate to
You-
them.
Do you want to upload hate to the dark net?
Darknet that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah. Meet
That's
us
where our
on,
Patreon is found on the dark net.
Imaginary net speak.
meet
Oh,
us
we,
on Red
we
Channels.
don't advocate violence here at Honey Badger Radio.
No, we don't know.
Violins, just violins, because they sound better.
Violins.
Okay.
But not the bass violins, because that's misogynistic.
All right. Okay. So if you want to patron us, we champion people's right to free speech and to express what they want. I mean, even if they express things you don't like, it's worse to silence them because at least when they're expressing and talking, you can start a dialogue. And we also, I don't want to silence social justice warriors. I don't want them to shut up. They can continue to do what they do. For example, they can continue to do what they did to comics creator Terrell Hunt, who created Goblins, which was to abuse and harass him and try to compel him to discredit his own audience as rape supporters. I mean, feel free if you're a social justice warrior. I'm not telling you that you should be silenced. You should feel free to abuse and harass and torture. Or emotionally torture and be as much of an internet troll as you want, but you can do it without the moral high ground. See, the thing is that trolls know they're trolls. They don't have self-righteousness. They don't do what they do, and nobody looks at trolls and says, oh my God, they're doing God's work. So you can continue to troll social justice warriors and feminists who do stuff like that. You can continue to be abusive and troll people and leave your toxic criticism and harass and threaten. Well, pseudo threats, not real threats, but you do it without people's buy-in, without people's moral buy-in of your narrative. And it's not taking anything away from you because us people who are not you, we're the ones granting you your moral high ground. We're the ones giving it to you. And we're the ones here at Honey Badger Radio or BadgerPod or whatever you want to call us, we're the ones saying, you don't have to do that. You don't have to give social justice warriors the high ground. That's your consent. And you can say no. They say that you can't say no, but you have the right to say no. You have the right to say no, you do not have the moral high ground. I'm not giving you the moral high ground. That is an exchange that I am saying no to. You don't have my consent. And that's what I'm saying. They can continue to say anything they want, but they don't get to have the moral high ground because we give it to them and we can take it back. Because they have to get our consent. And anyway, if you like that message, please consider patroning us at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Every little bit helps. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll throw it back to Brian.
Oh, no, it's fine. Also, check out the Minecraft server.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Honey Badger Brigade.
Oh no, the Steam group.
Oh, the Steam group. I'm sorry. which is Honey Badger Brigade, Badgers with Bite.
No, Honey Badger Radio, Badgers with Bite.
Yeah, I got that wrong. I'm sorry. Don't kill me. Don't kill me, guys. Call these people on their bullshit. I mean, they're allowed to speak, but don't let them control the megaphone. That's how I That's how I stand on it. Call them on their bullshit.
Well, yeah, they can speak, but don't give them the moral high ground.
Right.
They can speak right on the same level as all of us plebes.
Yeah, just post some dank memes and carry on. Just
post dank memes.
Yeah. Keep calm and post dank memes.
All right, so we're gonna go unless there's any final words.
No, go.
Carl.
Carl. No, we gotta. That's it.
Oh.
Post dank memes. Level up. She's a whore.